And also, what's really brilliant about the film is how it's structured. In the present, they set up many things that will happen in the past, creating detailed parallels, and making many plot elements established subtly for seemingly mundane dialogue. In the present, we see Marty wants to become a rock and roll player but gets rejected by the school and is worried about sending a tape to a company fearing rejection. And we see his father is bullied by Biff, who tells Marty to tell his mom about him. And later we see his father being bullied by Biff in the past and him fearing rejection. And Marty plays rock and roll at the dance. And his mother tells them where she and his father fell in love, which was at the dance, and how he met his father. And later he has to make sure that his father and her kiss at the same place. And what's also interesting is that we therefore know when he interrupts their meeting why this was the special place they met and how it all happened, and what kind of insight both characters have into it, and how he knows when he has to reunite them for the timeline to be restored. And in the opening, we see his sister is unhappy over not asking boys out, and his brother has a low-life job, and at the end his brother has a high-quality job and his sister has many boyfriends. And in the opening, a woman asks money to save the clock tower, which the mayor wants to replace because it didn't work after it got struck by lightning. And what's then very interesting is that it got struck by lightning 30 years ago, and now it's very interesting that in the past we see you can use this lightning to get the energy to get a car to work and to get home. Also, Biff asking Marty of his mom shows her that he finds her hut, which we see more of in the past when he tries to arrest her. And also what's interesting is in the opening we see, and here in the news, that plutonium was stolen, for which the Libyans claim responsibility, and we see the plutonium is on the dog's table, which he uses later on for time travel. And also all the conflicts are very well explained. We know who the hero is. It's Marty, because he tries to protect his mother and helps his father and simply wants to save his and Doug's life. And we know his motivation is self-preservation and caring for his family. We know the villain is Biff for arresting a girl and using a young man and beating people up. And we know his motivation is lust, selfishness and laziness. We know the Libyans are villains because they tried to kill someone for simply stealing some plutonium, and that he stole it in the first place. And we know their motivations are lust for destruction. And we know the conflict we know the conflict, which is that Marty wants to protect his mother against Biff, which annoys Biff, and we know the dog stole the plutonium from the Libyans, which angered them. And we know the stakes, the safety of Marty, Doug, Lorraine, and George, four really good, nice people. So it's all very well explained. The characters are all really deep and meaningful and colorful, and have detailed backstories and meaningful relationships and complex arcs. Marty is warm and caring and helpful and friendly and loyal and optimistic, but also worried and a bit unconfident, yet assertive and brave and clever and romantic and playful and jokey, and but serious in dramatic situations. And he's very persistent, and he can also be angry and also sometimes stressed, but he's often very smooth, and he doesn't follow his own ideas of when you put your mind to it you can do anything. And after the audition of his rock band failing, he doesn't want to send the tape to a company fearing rejection, but he gives his father the advice to stand up for himself and be brave. And in the end, when his father follows his advice, he follows it himself as well, and he plays rock and roll at the festival. So the son teaches his father, and thereby also allows himself to grow, as his father sets an example for him, which is of course really deep. He is also developed very subtly, showing how smooth he is when he just rides around holding onto cars with a skateboard, and reacts calmly when the stereo system blows him away. And he has the backstory that his parents forbid him to take girls out, and that his father isn't very rich, and that he's bullied by Biff, who takes everything from his father and him, and leaves him with little, crashing the car which he really needed. And Doug is developed very subtly as well, by showing how many clocks he has. In the opening, we see his obsessive, which is reconfirmed by how he worked on a time machine for about 30 years. We see his house is completely run by automated equipment, setting up that he is really ambitious with technology. We see in it that he creates, which explains why he would create something as a time machine. We see his house is a mess, and that he once burned down his own mansion, showing that he is a big risk taker. And we see, in which we will also see later on in the film, with his plan to use the lightning. And we see he's a bit reckless, having stolen plutonium, which we will see later on when the Libyans go after him. And he creates a time travel experiment, so without showing the character or using one word of dialogue, the opening already taught us really a lot of things about the character. And we also see he's warm to Marty and helpful and a bit awkward, very joyful over his accomplishments, that he's really overly excited, that he's brave and worried and principalic, and is willing to risk his life refusing to learn of the future because he wants to alter the principles of linear time. But eventually, Marty keeps advising him that it's very important for him to know about the future, and since he really trusts Marty, and since taking risks with time and helping him travel back paid off, and since Marty helped restore time, he eventually believes it, and he's willing to take the risk, and he grows as a character, becoming braver, learning from Marty, learning to take risks and to think in the here and now, to just put your mind to something, be willing to take risks because if you don't, your problems won't solve themselves. And he realized there was a real problem here, and if you do, if you're smart enough, you can always solve them. And he succeeds, saving himself from death. Then we have George. He is really deep as well, and he's just a very caring and nice character. But he is not happy doing but he's not at all happy. And he doesn't at all enjoy life and isn't happy about himself. But he is happy and does enjoy things like comedies. And he used to be a peeping Tom when he was a teenager, spying on very hot girls. And he is also really distant, barely listening to others, but not because he's cold, but just because he's too stressed and unhappy with himself. He's scared and unconfident and silent and shy, and he wanted to write science fiction stories, but he was too afraid to tell anyone or show anyone, and he didn't stand up against Biff. So now he works for Biff, and Biff blackmails him to do his work and to borrow him his car, after which he crashes him and blames him for a non-existent blind spot, and wants to make him pay for it and for the beer he spilled over his gloves. But eventually, when Biff is harassing Lorraine, Marty advises him that he needs to be braver and that he should take risk in life, and that it's very important to do so, and that otherwise people will walk over him forever, and that he has to do it to take care of himself well, and that he has to do it to be a successful person. And eventually, when Lorraine is being harassed, he all of a sudden realizes that he can't leave her behind, and that he can't leave her to be raped, and because he's still a very caring person, although very distant and stressed, he does realize that he can't leave her to be raped, and his selflessness and his caringness for others allows him to stand up and to hit Biff. And he realizes that he needs to save her and that he cares for Lorraine, and then he hits Biff, and he becomes more brave and self-confident and makes his dreams come true, and therefore is happy with himself and can now love Lorraine. At first he still doubts his own bravery a bit, not being sure to kiss her and almost allowing another guy to harass her again, but he pushes him away and kisses her, realizing he truly can be brave, that he can take risks in order to protect the people he loves and to become a stronger person. And he then starts writing sci-fi novels and sells them, becoming very rich, and he causes Biff to listen to him, and he becomes very popular, and he's now very nice, and he's now happy with himself, and as a result very nice to Lorraine, and they really understand each other. And what's really deep about this is that it isn't just about standing up for yourself against bullies, but that it's just a metaphor for taking risks. And it's very deep that he grows to love Lorraine, and not just because he is brave enough, but because he's confident enough to admit his own feelings and be happy, because up until that point he was also very cowardly, in that he didn't feel ready for girls and couldn't admit his own feelings. But now that he trusts himself, he does feel ready for girls, and he can take risks. And what's also very interesting is that Lorraine in the past is a really sweet and warm, but also a bit aggressive character, and she's really reckless, drinking and smoking, and then lacks self-respect, dating countless guys at a very young age, parking with them. But she is also very caring, but still a bit secretive. In the present, she is really unhappy, having become an alcoholic and married someone she can't really bond with, and she is very strict, forbidding her kids to date boys, like she did herself. And even though she said that she would allow all her children to do anything they wanted, because she doesn't want the same thing to happen to them. She's way too strict, forbidding them basic social contact and not allowing them to date. And her daughter is very unhappy with no social life, and her son has a low-life job. This is where a really nice element of interpretation comes in the film, which is really so well set up, giving you clear hints and creating a nice mystery. It's very interesting that she drinks and smokes a lot, and eventually Marty tells her that she might regret it, and she realizes that Marty tells her it's very dangerous to be drinking and smoking and just park with random guys at such a young age, and she dismisses it, saying he talks like her mom. But eventually, when she kisses him, she realizes that dating at such a young age might be dangerous, because she realizes it doesn't at all feel right. And eventually in the future, she doesn't seem to be drinking or smoking, and is very happy, and is a very relaxed and easygoing person, and a very nice parent. And she now trusts her kids because she's happy herself, and she allows her daughter to date many guys. So what made this happen? This is where it gets really deep. It wasn't just the fact that she's happier now that made her be nicer to her kids. It wasn't just the fact that she was happy with having a braver man. No, then she would still be smoking and drinking, because she has a strong husband, she wouldn't all of a sudden stop being very irresponsible. No, now that George loves himself and loves her more, she doesn't need to abuse herself anymore, because she now has someone that loves her, and she realizes that she can be happy by having true love, and therefore she doesn't need to act as irresponsible anymore, and can be more happy and be a freer parent. And of course Marty advised her not to drink and smoke, and when she kissed him and it felt like it was her brother, this probably made her realize rushing things was bad. But also, now that George is braver and that he probably loves himself enough to love her enough, he could probably have helped her quit drinking and smoking. So a self-loving man leads to a self-loving wife, and so they raise their kids happily and supportively, and now their daughter is happy and their boys, and the son has a high-quality job. We also see her backstory is that she lives in a warm, pretty high middle-class family, that she has loving parents, so her flaws, her own mistakes, come from her needs for something special. So this is really interpretable. It is a really interpretable element, but it's done with many hints, and it's got clear dimension and clear depth and clear context, and it's very well set up, and there's a very logical pattern here, and a big part of the story that we can follow, and the interpretable elements are perfectly set around the knowledge we have and leave not too much room for interpretation. They were still making this a very solid, meaningful story, and so it was very thought-provoking and immensely deep. And the romance between them is really deep as well. In the original Present, she only loves him because she pitied him when he was injured, and they shared nothing, and he wasn't happy enough to care for her. But now that Marty went back to the past, and that he made George realize that he could be stronger, that he shouldn't allow people to walk over himself, and now that he sees her in danger and decides that he can't leave her to be raped, and saves her, he becomes braver and is able to admit his own feelings to her and kiss her, and loves himself more. And as a result, she can truly love him more, as she now can truly appreciate her, and as a result they can share things more. And what's very interesting as well is that he didn't just become braver, but he realized how much he cared for her, and so now she could become happy with him as well, and she could truly love him, and therefore they could share things and really care for each other.